The alien ship moved through space like a giant metal spider. Its dark hull blocked out the stars as it flew toward the small human colony on New Denver. Inside the ship, Dr. Zethkar looked at his computer screens with excitement. Today would be the day he finally got the perfect test subject for his experiments. Dr. Zethkar was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 arms. His people, the hegemony, had ruled over many worlds for hundreds of years. They were smart, powerful, and believed they were better than every other race in the galaxy. But they had a problem. They needed workers to build their machines and mine their planets. Slaves who would never fight back or cause trouble. For 50 years, Dr. Zethkar had been studying different alien races. He learned how to change their minds and make them obey. The process was simple but cruel. First, they would capture members of a species. Then they would put them in special rooms where machines would attack their brains with waves and sounds. After weeks or months, the prisoners would forget who they used to be. They would become perfect slaves who never questioned orders. The doctor had done this to dozens of different alien races. Fish people from the water worlds, bird creatures from the sky planets, and rock beings from the deep caves. All of them had been turned into obedient workers. But humans were different. They were harder to break than the others. The first human prisoners had been captured 3 years ago from a small research station. Dr. Zethkar had tried his usual methods on them. Some had been successful, but others had fought the process. A few had even died rather than give in. This made the doctor very curious about human minds. He studied every piece of information about humans he could find. He read their books, watched their movies, and listened to their music. What he learned surprised him. Humans were not the strongest or smartest race in the galaxy. But they had something unusual. They worked together in groups, and they followed leaders who were brave and strong. This gave Dr. Zethkar an idea. If he could remove the leadership instincts from a human, they might become the perfect slaves. He needed to find a human who was smart enough to be useful but also used to following orders. Someone who would not fight too hard against the conditioning. That was when he found Lisa Morgan. Lisa was 23 years old and worked as an engineer on the New Denver mining colony. Her file showed that she had served in the Earth Defense Force for 4 years before taking the job on New Denver. During her military service, she had always followed orders without complaining. She was smart, hard-working, and seemed to respect authority. Perfect. The attack on New Denver happened at dawn. The colonists were eating breakfast or getting ready for work when the hegemony ships appeared in the sky. The colony had no weapons to fight back. In less than 2 hours, it was over. Most of the colonists were killed, but Dr. Zethkar had given orders to capture certain people alive. Lisa Morgan was at the top of his list. When the alien soldiers found Lisa, she was helping wounded colonists in the medical center. She did not run or hide like the others. Instead, she stood up and faced the soldiers with calm eyes. Even when they pointed their weapons at her, she did not show fear. "Are you Lisa Morgan?" asked the lead soldier in broken English. "Yes," she replied. "You come with us." Lisa looked around at the injured people she had been helping. Then she looked back at the soldier. "Can I help them first? They're hurt." The soldier was confused. Most prisoners begged for their lives or tried to escape. This human was asking to help others even when she was about to be captured. "No," the soldier said. "You come now." Lisa nodded. She said goodbye to the wounded colonists and walked with the soldiers to their ship. She did not fight or cry. She seemed almost accepting. This behavior made Dr. Zethkar even more confident that he had chosen the right subject. The journey to the hegemony research facility took 2 weeks. Lisa was kept in a small cell with basic food and water. Every day, alien guards would come to check on her. They expected her to be angry or scared, but she remained calm and polite. She even tried to learn some words in their language. Dr. Zethkar watched her through security cameras. Everything about Lisa Morgan suggested she would be easy to condition. She followed rules, respected authority, and seemed to accept her situation without fighting. When they arrived at the research facility on Kepler 442b, Lisa was taken to a medical room for examination. Dr. Zethkar himself performed the tests. He measured her brain activity, checked her physical health, and asked her questions about her life. "Why did you join the military?" he asked through a translation device. "I wanted to protect people," Lisa answered honestly. "My family, my friends, my planet." "And you always followed orders?" "Yes. Good soldiers follow orders." Dr. Zethkar smiled with all four of his mouths. This human had the exact personality type he needed. She was naturally inclined to follow authority figures, but she was also intelligent enough to be useful as a worker. Over the next few days, Lisa was moved to a holding area with other human prisoners. There were 12 humans total, all captured from different colonies. Some were angry and constantly tried to escape. Others had given up and sat quietly in their cells. But Lisa was different. She was calm but alert. She watched everything and everyone around her. The other humans were confused by her behavior. A man named Pete asked her, "Why aren't you more upset? Don't you want to go home?" "Of course I want to go home," Lisa replied quietly. "But getting angry won't help us right now. We need to understand our situation first." Dr. Zethkar was pleased when he heard this conversation through the listening devices. Lisa Morgan was already showing the kind of rational, obedient thinking he wanted in all his subjects. He began preparing the conditioning chamber. This was a white room with no windows or decorations. The walls, floor, and ceiling were covered with devices that could project lights, sounds, and neural frequencies directly into a prisoner's brain. Most subjects lasted only a few days before their minds broke down and accepted the programming. But Dr. Zethkar had special plans for Lisa Morgan. He would take his time with her, carefully adjusting the conditioning to preserve her intelligence while removing her ability to lead or rebel. She would become the first of a new type of human slave. Smart enough to solve complex problems, but completely unable to resist orders. As Lisa was prepared for the conditioning process, Dr. Zethkar felt confident that he was about to achieve his greatest success. He had found the perfect human subject, one who was naturally inclined to submission and respect for authority. He had no idea how wrong he was. The conditioning chamber was exactly as Dr. Zethkar had described it to his assistants. Pure white walls surrounded Lisa on all sides. There were no windows, no decorations, nothing to look at except blank surfaces. The only sound was a low humming that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Lisa sat in the center of the room on a simple chair. Metal bands held her arms and legs in place, but not tightly. The aliens wanted her to be uncomfortable, but not in pain. Dr. Zethkar had explained to his team that pain could make humans more rebellious. Better to use subtle pressure and mental manipulation. On the first day, the lights began to flash. Slow at first, then faster and faster until Lisa felt dizzy. Colors swirled around her in patterns that made no sense. Red, blue, green, yellow, all mixing together in ways that hurt her eyes and made her head ache. At the same time, sounds played through hidden speakers. Sometimes it was music, but wrong somehow. Other times it was voices speaking words in languages she did not understand. The voices would get louder and softer, faster and slower, until Lisa could not tell what was real and what was not. Dr. Zethkar watched from his control room. Sensors attached to Lisa's head measured her brain activity. The readings showed exactly what he expected. Her stress levels were rising. Her mind was becoming confused and tired. This was normal for the first stage of conditioning. But Lisa was not as confused as the machines suggested. Years of military training had taught her many things. One of the most important lessons was how to stay calm under pressure. During her service, she had been through survival training where instructors tried to break down soldiers using stress and confusion. The techniques were different, but the goal was the same. Make the subject tired and scared so they would give up their resistance. Lisa recognized what was happening to her. The aliens were trying to attack her mind, just like the instructors had during training. But she had survived that, and she would survive this too. The trick was to let her body react naturally while keeping her mind protected. She allowed herself to feel dizzy from the lights. She let the sounds confuse her outer thoughts. But deep inside, in a quiet part of her mind, she stayed focused and alert. While the machines measured her stress and confusion, Lisa was actually studying her prison. She counted the flashing patterns of the lights. She memorized the sequences of sounds. She measured the length of her daily sessions by tracking her heartbeat and breathing. Most importantly, She began to understand the routine of her captors. Every morning, Dr. Zethkar would enter the chamber to check her condition. He would ask her questions in English, testing how much the conditioning had affected her ability to think clearly. Lisa learned to give him exactly the answers he wanted to hear. "How do you feel today, Lisa Morgan?" he would ask. "Tired," she would reply, making her voice sound weak and confused. "Very tired. Do you remember why you are here?" Lisa would pause, as if trying to think. "You want to help me," she would say slowly. "You want to make me better." This made Dr. Zethkar very happy. He believed the conditioning was working perfectly. Lisa was beginning to accept the hegemony as her protectors rather than her captors. Soon, she would be completely obedient. But while Lisa pretended to be broken, she was actually learning everything she could about the facility. She noticed that the guards changed shifts every 8 hours. She observed that Dr. Zethkar always carried a small device that controlled the doors. She counted the footsteps of people walking in the hallway outside her chamber. After 2 weeks, something unexpected began to happen. The machines that monitored Lisa's brain started showing strange readings. Instead of becoming simpler and more obedient, her mind was becoming more complex. New neural pathways were forming faster than old ones were being destroyed. Dr. Zethkar was puzzled but not worried. Sometimes subjects showed unusual brain activity during conditioning. He decided to increase the intensity of the sessions. The lights flashed brighter, the sounds became louder, and the mental attacks lasted longer each day. This was exactly what Lisa had been hoping for. The stronger attacks gave her more information about the aliens' technology. She realized that the neural frequencies they used followed mathematical patterns. By studying these patterns, she began to understand how the conditioning process worked. More importantly, she started to figure out how it could be reversed. During her 3rd week in the chamber, Lisa made her most important discovery. The facility was much larger than she had thought. Through the walls, she could hear sounds from other parts of the building. Footsteps, voices, and sometimes screaming. There were other prisoners here, many of them human. This changed everything. Lisa had been preparing to escape on her own, but now she realized she had a much bigger responsibility. She could not leave the other humans behind to suffer the same fate she was supposed to receive. Somehow, she needed to find a way to contact them and organize a resistance. The opportunity came during her daily medical examination. While Dr. Zethkar was distracted by his computer readings, Lisa noticed something important. The medical room was directly next to a hallway that connected to the prison cells. If she listened carefully during the examination, she could hear guards moving prisoners back and forth. That night, alone in her cell, Lisa began to develop a plan. She started with small tests. During exercise periods, she would walk near the walls and tap softly in patterns. The taps were based on military codes she had learned during her service. Simple messages like, "Hello," and "Human here," and "Can you hear me?" For 3 days, there was no response. Lisa began to worry that she was the only conscious prisoner left, that all the other humans had already been broken by the conditioning. Then, on the 4th night, she heard it. A soft tapping from the wall of the next cell. 3 short taps, 3 long taps, 3 short taps. It was Morse code for SOS, the International Distress Signal. Lisa's heart raced with excitement. There was another human nearby who was still fighting the conditioning. She tapped back carefully, spelling out her name and asking for theirs. The response came slowly, JAKE, HELP. Over the following weeks, Lisa established contact with Jake and 2 other humans who were still mentally free. Jake Rodriguez had been a security chief on the colony of New Texas before his capture. He had been pretending to be broken for 6 months while secretly studying the facility. The others were Nina Campbell, a scientist, and Ben Parker, a former pilot. Using their network of wall taps and hand signals during exercise periods, the 4 humans began to share information. Jake knew the guard rotations and the layout of the prison section. Nina understood some of the alien technology from her scientific background. Ben had memorized the locations of important equipment during his conditioning sessions. Lisa coordinated their intelligence gathering while continuing to fool Dr. Zethkar into believing she was becoming more obedient each day. It was exhausting work, pretending to be broken while actually organizing a resistance movement. But as the network of free humans grew, Lisa realized they were not just planning an escape. They were preparing for something much more dangerous and important. They were going to strike back at the aliens who thought humans could be easily enslaved. Dr. Zethkar had made a terrible mistake. He had chosen Lisa Morgan as his perfect test subject because he thought she would be easy to control. But he had actually given leadership training and military experience to the one person who could organize an effective rebellion against him. The conditioning had failed completely. Instead of creating a submissive slave, the aliens had created their worst nightmare, a human leader who understood their weaknesses and was determined to exploit them. 2 months into her captivity, Lisa Morgan had become someone completely different from the person Dr. Zethkar thought he was conditioning. On the surface, she appeared to be the perfect success story. During daily examinations, she answered his questions with the obedient tone he expected. She followed orders without complaint and seemed grateful for the treatment she was receiving. But beneath this careful act, Lisa had transformed into something the hegemony had never encountered before, a human resistance leader operating inside their most secure facility. The network of free humans had grown to include 8 people across 3 different cell blocks. Communication happened through a complex system of coded taps, hand signals during exercise periods, and messages hidden in the small personal items prisoners were allowed to keep. Jake Rodriguez had become Lisa's second in command. His background in security made him perfect for gathering intelligence about the facility's defenses. During his months of pretending to be broken, Jake had memorized the patrol routes of every guard, the locations of security cameras, and the timing of shift changes. Nina Campbell proved to be invaluable for understanding alien technology. As a xenobiologist, she could recognize the purpose of equipment that others found confusing. She had discovered that the conditioning chambers used quantum frequency generators to disrupt neural pathways. More importantly, she believed the process could be reversed if they could access the right equipment. Ben Parker, the former pilot, had been studying the facility's power systems during his conditioning sessions. The aliens had made the mistake of conducting his sessions in a room near the main generator. Through careful observation, he had mapped out the entire electrical grid of the complex. The newest members of the network were Amy Foster, a communications specialist, and Carl Stevens, who had been a teacher before his capture. Amy understood how information systems worked, while Carl was skilled at organizing people and keeping them motivated during difficult times. Lisa coordinated everything from her position at the center of Dr. Zethkar's attention. The alien doctor continued to believe she was his greatest success, never suspecting that his prize subject was actually the leader of a growing rebellion. The breakthrough that changed everything came during Lisa's 7th week of conditioning. Nina had been working on a theory about the facility's communication systems. During her own sessions, she had noticed that the neural disruptors sometimes interfered with other electronic equipment in the room. This suggested that the aliens used similar quantum frequencies for multiple purposes, including long-distance communication. If Nina was right, it might be possible to access the facility's communication network through the conditioning equipment. But they would need someone with technical training and access to the right chamber during a session. That someone was Lisa. During her next conditioning session, Lisa allowed herself to go deeper into the meditative state she used to protect her mind. While the machines showed Dr. Zethkar exactly what he wanted to see, Lisa was actually extending her consciousness toward the quantum frequencies around her. It took tremendous concentration and several attempts, but eventually Lisa found what Nina had predicted. Hidden within the neural attack frequencies was a data stream carrying information throughout the facility and beyond. With careful mental discipline, Lisa learned to ride this data stream during her sessions. While pretending to be unconscious and broken, she was actually accessing computer systems throughout the complex. She found prisoner records, guard schedules, facility layouts, and most importantly, communication logs with other hegemony installations. What she discovered was both horrifying and inspiring. The hegemony operated dozens of conditioning facilities across multiple star systems. Thousands of beings from hundreds of different species were being processed into slaves. But the communication logs also revealed something else. The conditioning program was having problems with many species, not just humans. Some alien races were proving naturally resistant to the process. Others would break initially but then recover their memories and personalities after a few months. The hegemony was struggling to maintain control over their growing slave population. Lisa realized that their escape would not be enough. Even if they freed all the humans in this facility, the hegemony would simply capture more from other colonies. The only way to truly win was to strike at the entire conditioning program. She began sharing this information with her network through their established communication channels. The response was immediate and unanimous. They had to take the risk and attempt something no prisoners had ever tried before. They would seize control of the facility and use it against the hegemony themselves. Planning for the operation required weeks of careful preparation. Each member of the network had specific responsibilities based on their skills and access to different parts of the facility. Jake would lead the tactical assault on the security systems. His team included Ben and 2 other humans who had been secretly recruited, Dan Kelly, a former soldier, and Sue Martinez, who had worked in colony defense. Nina would head the technical team responsible for taking control of the conditioning equipment and communication arrays. She worked with Amy to understand how to reverse the neural programming and send liberation signals to other facilities. Carl became responsible for organizing the other prisoners. Many humans in the facility had been partially or completely broken by the conditioning process. They would need to be awakened and motivated quickly once the operation began. Lisa would coordinate the overall mission while maintaining her cover as Dr. Zethkar's successful subject. This was perhaps the most dangerous role, as she would need to remain in close contact with the aliens right up until the moment of the attack. As the plans developed, the network discovered they were not alone. Through the data streams Lisa accessed during her sessions, they made contact with resistance groups in 2 other hegemony facilities. These groups had been operating independently, unaware that others were planning similar operations. The discovery of other resistance movements changed the scope of their mission completely. Instead of a single facility breakout, they were now planning a coordinated multi-system rebellion. The timing would be crucial. All 3 facilities would need to strike simultaneously to prevent the hegemony from responding effectively. Lisa found herself in command of something far larger than she had ever imagined. She was no longer just leading a group of prisoners trying to escape. She had become the coordinator of an interstellar rebellion against one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The irony was not lost on her. Dr. Zethkar had chosen her specifically because he believed she would be naturally submissive and easy to control. Instead, his selection process had identified someone with exactly the leadership qualities needed to organize an effective resistance movement. As the date for the operation approached, Lisa continued her daily routine of pretending to be a broken and obedient slave. Dr. Zethkar remained completely convinced of his success. His reports to Hegemony Command praised the progress being made with human conditioning and recommended expanding the program. He had no idea that his greatest triumph was about to become his most devastating defeat. The night before the planned uprising, Lisa lay in her cell thinking about everything that had led to this moment. 2 months ago, she had been a simple engineer on a peaceful mining colony. Now she was the leader of a rebellion that could change the fate of thousands of enslaved beings across multiple star systems. Tomorrow would determine whether humans were truly as weak and controllable as the hegemony believed, or if they had made the greatest mistake in their long history of conquest. Lisa smiled in the darkness. Dr. Zethkar was about to find out just how wrong he had been about human nature. The uprising began at exactly 3 in the morning, station time. Lisa had chosen this moment because her weeks of observation had shown it was when the hegemony guards were at their weakest. The aliens followed a natural sleep cycle that made them drowsy and less alert during these hours. In her cell, Lisa listened to the subtle sounds that told her the operation was beginning. 3 soft taps from Jake's cell meant the security team was ready. A whispered cough from Nina indicated the technical team had accessed their equipment. The gentle scraping of Ben's chair confirmed the power systems team was in position. Lisa closed her eyes and prepared herself for what was about to happen. In a few minutes, she would either be free or dead. There would be no middle ground. The first phase of the plan was Jake's responsibility. He and his team had to neutralize the night guards without triggering the facility's alarm systems. Over his months of captivity, Jake had noticed that the guards followed a predictable pattern. At 3 in the morning, only 4 aliens patrolled the entire prison section. Jake had been working on his cell lock for weeks, using a small piece of metal from his meal tray to gradually wear down the mechanism. When the time came, it opened with a soft click that was barely audible. Moving through the corridors like a shadow, Jake reached the first guard station. The alien guard was sitting at his desk, reviewing prisoner reports on a computer screen. He never saw Jake coming. The attack was swift and silent. Jake's military training had taught him how to disable enemies without making noise. Within seconds, the guard was unconscious and tied up with strips of fabric torn from blankets. Meanwhile, in the technical section of the facility, Nina was putting her part of the plan into action. Her conditioning sessions had been conducted in a room connected to the main computer systems. During those sessions, she had carefully studied how to access the alien technology. The quantum frequency generators that powered the conditioning chambers were the key to everything. Nina had realized that these machines could be reprogrammed to send different signals. Instead of breaking down neural pathways, they could strengthen them. Instead of creating submission, they could restore free will. Working quickly but carefully, Nina began entering new commands into the alien computers. The programming language was different from anything humans used, but the mathematical principles were the same. It took her precious minutes to modify the quantum frequencies, minutes during which discovery would mean death for all of them. In another part of the facility, Ben Parker was dealing with the power systems. The aliens had made their electrical grid complex but not impenetrable. Ben had traced the main power lines during his weeks of observation. Now he carefully rerouted power away from the security systems while maintaining electricity to the areas his team needed. The beauty of their plan was its timing. Each phase depended on the others, but they were all happening simultaneously. While Jake eliminated the guards, Nina reprogrammed the computers, and Ben controlled the power, other team members were moving to their assigned positions throughout the complex. Amy Foster reached the communication center just as the guards there realized something was wrong. One of the aliens was reaching for the alarm button when Amy struck him with a metal pipe she had stolen from the maintenance area. The guard collapsed, and Amy quickly began working on the communication equipment. Carl Stevens had perhaps the most difficult job. He was responsible for awakening the other prisoners, many of whom had been partially broken by the conditioning process. Moving from cell to cell, Carl whispered urgent messages to humans who stared at him with confused and frightened eyes. "Listen to me," he told each prisoner. "We're escaping tonight. The conditioning was fake. You're still human. Remember who you are and help us fight back." Some prisoners responded immediately, their personalities snapping back like rubber bands. Others needed more convincing, their minds still clouded by weeks or months of neural manipulation. But gradually, Carl built a growing army of angry and determined humans. Phase 1 of the operation was complete within 20 minutes. The night guards were neutralized, the security systems were disabled, and the communication arrays were under human control. But this was just the beginning. Dr. Zethkar was asleep in his private quarters when the alarms finally began to sound. By then it was too late. Jake's team had taken control of the security center, and they were using the facility's own systems against the remaining guards. The doctor stumbled out of his bed and rushed toward his control room, expecting to find a minor disturbance that could be quickly contained. Instead, he found Lisa Morgan standing behind his desk, calmly operating his computers. "Good morning, Doctor," Lisa said without turning around. "I hope you slept well. You're going to have a very busy day." Dr. Zethkar's 4 eyes widened in shock and confusion. This could not be happening. Lisa Morgan was his greatest success, the perfectly conditioned human who proved his theories were correct. She should be incapable of rebellion or independent thought. "You cannot be here," he stammered in broken English. "The conditioning worked. You are obedient. You follow orders." Lisa finally turned to face him, and Dr. Zethkar saw something in her eyes that made his blood run cold. There was intelligence there, and determination, and something else that terrified him, leadership. "The conditioning never worked," Lisa explained calmly. "I've been pretending to be broken for months while I planned this operation. You chose me because you thought I would be submissive, but you actually chose the one person with the training and experience to organize a successful rebellion against you." While Dr. Zethkar stared in shock, Lisa continued operating his computer systems. She was accessing files throughout the facility, learning the locations of every prisoner and every piece of equipment they would need. "Nina," Lisa spoke into a communication device she had taken from the security center. "Are you ready with the reversal frequencies?" "Ready," came Nina's voice from the technical center. "All quantum generators are reprogrammed. I can broadcast the liberation signal throughout the facility on your command." "Do it." Throughout the complex, The conditioning chambers that had been used to break minds began broadcasting a different kind of signal. The neural frequencies that had created submission were reversed, becoming waves that restored memory and personality. In dozens of cells, prisoners who had been reduced to empty shells suddenly remembered who they were. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Humans who had been shuffling around like robots for months suddenly stood up straight and looked around with clear eyes. Aliens from other species shook their heads as if waking from a long dream. Even some hegemony workers who had been conditioned years earlier began to question their loyalty. But Lisa was not finished. While Dr. Zethkar watched in growing horror, she accessed the facility's long-range communication systems. The liberation frequency was about to be broadcast far beyond this single complex. "Amy, are you connected to the other facilities?" Lisa asked. "Connected and ready," Amy replied from the communication center. "Both Kepler, 438b, and Wolf, 359c, are standing by for the signal." "Send it." Across 3 star systems, hegemony conditioning facilities received the liberation frequency at the same moment. Thousands of enslaved beings suddenly remembered their true selves. The carefully maintained order of the alien empire began to collapse as revolt spread from planet to planet. Dr. Zethkar fell to his knees as he realized the magnitude of what was happening. His life's work, the conditioning program that was supposed to secure hegemony dominance for centuries, was being destroyed by the very human he had chosen as his perfect subject. "Why?" he whispered. "Why did you not break like the others?" Lisa looked down at the defeated alien scientist. For a moment, she felt something like pity for him. He had spent his entire life believing that strength came from controlling others. He could never understand that true strength came from fighting for others. "Because you never understood what makes humans special," she said quietly. "We don't just fight for ourselves. We fight for everyone who can't fight back. And we never, ever give up." Outside the control room, the sounds of revolution echoed through the corridors. Free prisoners were overwhelming the remaining guards. Equipment was being destroyed or reprogrammed. The hegemony facility that had been a symbol of alien dominance was becoming a beacon of liberation. But this was only the beginning. The real work would start when they had to help thousands of freed beings rebuild their lives and prevent the hegemony from ever enslaving anyone again. Lisa Morgan, the woman who was supposed to become the perfect slave, had instead become the leader of the largest rebellion in galactic history. Part 5, Freedom's Price. 6 months after the liberation of the hegemony conditioning facilities, Lisa Morgan stood before the Galactic Council on the neutral world of Centaurus Prime. The Great Assembly Hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of different species, all of them staring at the human who had changed the course of galactic history. The journey from prisoner to galactic leader had not been easy. After the initial rebellion succeeded, Lisa and her team had faced the enormous task of helping thousands of freed beings recover from their conditioning and rebuild their lives. Many had been slaves for years and had forgotten how to make their own decisions. Others were so angry about their treatment that they wanted to destroy everything connected to the hegemony. Lisa had worked day and night to organize refugee camps, medical treatment, and transportation back to home worlds. She established councils of former prisoners who could govern themselves while they healed from their experiences. Most importantly, she made sure that the liberation frequency continued to spread throughout the galaxy, freeing more enslaved beings every day. The hegemony had not given up without a fight. Their military forces had attacked the liberated facilities, trying to recapture their former slaves and destroy the rebellion. But they had underestimated how quickly the revolution would spread. Species that had been enemies for centuries united against their common oppressor. Planets that had never communicated before shared resources and information to support the liberation movement. Jake Rodriguez had become Lisa's military commander, organizing the defense of free territories and training former slaves to fight back against hegemony forces. His experience in security proved valuable as the rebellion faced increasingly desperate attacks from alien armies. Nina Campbell led the technical teams that continued to develop and improve the liberation frequency technology. Her work ensured that even hegemony workers who had been conditioned decades earlier could recover their true personalities and memories. Ben Parker coordinated the logistics of the growing rebellion, managing supply lines and communication networks that now spanned dozens of star systems. His pilot training helped him understand the complex requirements of moving resources across interstellar distances. Amy Foster had become the voice of the liberation movement, broadcasting messages of hope and resistance to enslaved beings throughout the galaxy. Her communication skills turned her into one of the most recognizable figures in the rebellion. Carl Stevens worked with former prisoners to help them process their trauma and rebuild their sense of identity. His background as a teacher made him perfect for helping people remember who they had been before their enslavement. Together, this team of humans who had been captured and marked for conditioning had become the leadership of the most successful resistance movement in galactic history. Now, as Lisa prepared to address the Galactic Council, she reflected on how much had changed since her capture on New Denver. The quiet mining colony seemed like a lifetime ago. The person she had been then would never have imagined standing in this hall, representing not just humanity but all the freed peoples of the galaxy. The council chambers fell silent as Lisa approached the speaking platform. She looked out at the assembled representatives, many of whom had once considered humans to be a primitive and unimportant species. Their opinions had changed dramatically over the past 6 months. "Honored representatives," Lisa began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast hall. "6 months ago, I was a prisoner in a hegemony conditioning facility. I was supposed to be broken down and rebuilt as a slave. Instead, I became something the hegemony never expected, a leader who would not stop fighting for the freedom of all sentient beings." Murmurs rippled through the audience. Many of the representatives had here